Hello, my name is Madison, and I'm 35 years old. I'm a software engineer living in Chicago, and for the longest time, I believed that loyalty meant giving everything, your time, your money, your heart, especially to your family. I thought if I just kept giving, they'd eventually see me, appreciate me, maybe even love me for who I am. But I was wrong. Since the day I landed my first real job out of college, I started sending money home. Not a few dollars here and there, no. I sent my parents $3,000 every single month, almost 40% of my paycheck. While other people my age traveled, bought homes, or enjoyed their hard-earned salaries, I lived simply. I skipped vacations. I wore out the same laptop for years. I didn't dine out or buy new furniture. Every month, without fail, that $3,000 went into my parents' account. They told me it was temporary. Just until the business gets back on its feet, they said. But the months became years. The years became over a decade. I never complained. I never asked for anything in return. I just kept giving, thinking that's what a good daughter does. I told myself that one day they'd look at me and say, "Madison, we're proud of you. Thank you for everything." But that day never came. Instead, all I ever heard about was Bella. Bella, my younger sister, was 6 years younger than me and the center of every conversation. The golden child. Creative, impulsive, loud, and reckless, but adored by my parents in every way. I was the reliable one, the fixer, the quiet support system in the background. If Bella made a mistake, I was the one who quietly cleaned it up, financially or emotionally. If I made a small error, I was criticized for being careless. It had been this way since childhood. Bella would break a window playing inside, and I'd get scolded for not watching her. She crashed her first car. My parents replaced it without blinking. I bought my first car on my own with cash, and no one even said, "Good job." After years of being the invisible backbone, I kept thinking maybe, just maybe, things would change. That maybe when I finally had something to celebrate for myself, the family would see me. I thought that moment would come with my wedding. But I had no idea the storm that was waiting for me. 2 years before my wedding, my parents made a decision that felt like a slap in the face, even though they acted like it was a cause for celebration. They handed Bella, my completely inexperienced, impulsive sister, the family's small graphic design company. Just handed it to her like a gift bag, as if it were some kind of reward for being herself. They didn't ask me. They didn't talk to me. They didn't even explain. When I gently asked, "Is Bella ready to run a business?" my mother, Linda, narrowed her eyes and replied, "She has a great eye. She just needs a chance." My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. I wanted to believe in Bella. I really did. But I knew her patterns. She never followed through. She jumped from idea to idea. She had no real understanding of how money worked, no leadership skills, and certainly no business experience. Still, I said nothing. I stayed silent and watched. The problem started almost immediately. Employees complained of missed paychecks. Clients whispered to me at industry events that they'd been strung along or ghosted entirely. Legal notices arrived at the office, and rumors of unpaid taxes surfaced. People were calling me behind the scenes, asking if I knew what was going on. I did. I just couldn't say it out loud. Not yet. I tried to talk to my parents about it. I brought it up calmly, logically, hoping they'd finally listen to me. My mother cut me off. "It's fine, Madison. You don't understand how much pressure Bella's under. You've always had it easy." Easy? I was working 12-hour days, burning my eyes out on code, saving every penny while sending $3,000 to them each month, still doing it even as Bella was running their business into the ground. But I bit my tongue. Again. Even though I was paying off their bills, helping keep their lights on, helping cover Bella's business expenses without them asking. Again, I kept visiting for holidays, kept playing the role of the stable daughter. I kept pretending that everything was okay. Deep down, I still hoped that maybe when it was my turn, when I got married, when I finally had a milestone to celebrate for myself, things would shift. Maybe they'd focus on me for once. That's when Alex came into my life. My fiancé. My anchor. Alex wasn't just my partner, he was the first person who truly saw me. He's a journalist, steady, thoughtful, observant. Where I was constantly overlooked, he paid attention. Where I was expected to hold everything together, he held me instead. We planned a wedding. Small, meaningful. Just friends, some family, nothing extravagant. Every penny for that wedding, all $60,000, I had saved myself over the years. It was the first time I was doing something purely for me. Something that wasn't about Bella or my parents. For once, I was excited. Hopeful. I thought this time, finally, they'd support me. But exactly 1 week before my wedding, the call came. And everything shattered. It was a quiet afternoon. I was at home reviewing our final guest list and confirming vendor payments when my phone rang. My mom's name flashed on the screen. I smiled, thinking maybe, just maybe, she was calling to talk about the wedding. Maybe she wanted to help. Maybe she was finally excited for me. I answered, cheerful. Hi, Mom. She didn't return the tone. Maya, we need to talk, she said flatly, skipping past any greeting. The shift in her voice made my stomach tighten. What's wrong? I asked, already bracing. It's Bella, she said. She made some business decisions that didn't go well. We're in serious trouble. We need money now. I went still. My heart dropped, and my voice came out in a whisper. How much? We need the $60,000. The money you saved for the wedding. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. Wait, what? You're doing well, Madison. You've always been smart with money. You wouldn't even have that savings if it weren't for everything we gave you growing up. We're not asking you to cancel the wedding, she added quickly, just to prioritize your family. My mouth went dry. I stood there, frozen in my own apartment, holding the phone to my ear like it had betrayed me. I could feel something break inside me. Mom, I said quietly, I've given you 12 years of support. I've sent you nearly half my income every month. I never asked for anything. Not once. And now you want me to give up the one thing I've saved for myself? There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice changed, cold, sharp. So, now you're turning your back on us? On Bella? After all we've done for you? No, I said, tears rising to my eyes. You've stood by Bella, no matter how many mistakes she made. I've always been your backup plan. Your fixer. She hung up without another word. I stood in my living room, numb. The silence afterward felt louder than anything. The air was thick, my mind spinning. But I didn't cry. Not yet. The next day, everything exploded. I was home, sitting in my kitchen trying to calm myself, when I heard loud banging on my door. Before I could even stand up, the door flung open. Linda, my mother. She had let herself in with the spare key. She stomped into my apartment like she owned it. You're going to let your sister fall apart? She screamed. Do you have any idea what this family has sacrificed for you? I stayed seated, my voice barely above a whisper. Stop it. I can't do this anymore. She stepped closer. Before I could react, she grabbed a handful of my hair and yanked it violently. I gasped in pain and stood up instinctively, trying to pull away. And then she slapped me. A sharp, open-handed blow across the side of my face. The sound rang out in the apartment. My cheek burned. My scalp throbbed. And my heart finally stopped hoping. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Not her daughter. Just someone who had disobeyed. That was it. Something inside me changed. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, breathing slowly, staring right at her. I'm done, I said, voice calm but firm. I'm not your fixer anymore. She blinked. For a second, I thought she might lash out again. But instead, she spat the word, heartless, turned around, and slammed the door so hard that the frame shook. I stood there in the silence that followed, one hand on my face, the other hanging limp at my side. My scalp still ached from where she pulled my hair. My cheek was red and hot. But my mind had never been clearer. Something was over now. And something new, something stronger, was about to begin. I didn't move for a while. I just stood there in my apartment, the echo of the slammed door still vibrating in my bones. My scalp stung, my cheek burned, and my hands were trembling, but not from fear. From clarity. For the first time in my life, I saw my family for who they really were. And I saw myself for who I had been all these years, a source. Not a daughter. Not a person. Just a solution. When Alex came home later that evening, he saw my face before I even turned toward him. His expression changed in an instant. His usual calm was replaced with something fierce. He dropped his bag and crossed the room in seconds. "Madison," he said, gently touching my cheek. "What happened?" I didn't hold back. I told him everything. From the phone call to the hair pulling, the slap, the years of quiet servitude, and the unbearable guilt they used to control me. I laid it all out like spilling poison from a wound. Alex didn't interrupt once. He sat beside me, one hand holding mine, the other resting gently on my shoulder. And when I was done, when my voice was raw and my eyes heavy, he said something that cut right through me. "They don't love you, Madison. They love what you give. That's not the same thing." I cried that night, not just because of the pain, but because he said what I had never allowed myself to believe. That maybe it wasn't me who failed to be enough. Maybe it was them who never tried to love me without conditions. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I wasn't going to be the obedient daughter who quietly swallowed abuse. I wasn't going to send another dollar or another apology. I needed answers. I needed justice. I needed truth. So I picked up the phone and called the only person in my family who had ever treated me with real kindness, Uncle Frank. He was my father's older brother, a retired corporate attorney living in Detroit. Growing up, he was the one who brought me books, asked about my dreams, and noticed when no one else did. He had distanced himself from the family years ago, and now I finally understood why. When I told him everything, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Madison, I saw this coming. I just didn't realize it had gone this far." I didn't ask him for comfort. I asked him for help. I told him I wanted to know the truth about Bella's company. Something in my gut had always told me it wasn't just mismanagement, it was deeper, dirtier. Uncle Frank agreed. "We'll do this carefully," he said. Quietly, but thoroughly. That was the beginning. While he reviewed legal paperwork and searched for company records, I focused on my own life. Alex and I moved to Seattle, away from the weight of my family, and started fresh. I had always dreamed of building something of my own, so with Alex's encouragement, I finally did. We launched a small app development company from our apartment, Clearview Apps. It was humble at first, just the two of us, long nights, and lots of coffee. But it was ours. It was honest. And while my past unraveled behind me, I poured my soul into building something real. While Alex and I were quietly building something honest in Seattle, Uncle Frank was digging into something very different. He had asked me to forward every document I had ever received from my parents about Bella's business. Emails, invoices, contracts, anything I could find. I didn't have much, but what I gave him was enough to open the first crack. A few weeks later, he called me. "You were right," he said. "This isn't just poor management. It's fraud." I was silent. I think part of me hoped I was wrong, that it was all just a misunderstanding. But I had known. Deep down, I'd known. Uncle Frank explained what he'd found. There were multiple fake employees listed on the company's payroll, phantom workers who didn't exist. Bella had created entire identities to funnel money into what appeared to be ghost accounts. She had taken out several business loans using falsified project names. None of the projects existed, but the funds had been fully withdrawn. Some clients had paid large deposits up front and never received a single deliverable. A few had even reached out to Bella multiple times but were ignored or gaslighted into silence. Worse, the company hadn't filed proper taxes in over a year. The books were doctored. The financial records were a mess. I sat on the floor of our small apartment, surrounded by papers and bank statements Uncle Frank had sent over. I looked at the numbers, the forged names, the empty payment trails, and I shook. All those years, I helped keep their lives stable. All those nights, I skipped meals, wore worn-out clothes, sacrificed every comfort just to make sure they were okay. And they had built it all on lies. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just made a quiet promise to myself. I won't hide the truth anymore. While Uncle Frank began documenting the fraud and preparing legal files, I focused on Clearview apps. I started reaching out to businesses that had once been clients of Bella's company, ones I remembered being respectful, ones I knew had pulled away. I didn't tell them who I was. I just showed them what I could do. Professional. Reliable. No gimmicks. Within 2 months, I had 5 of those clients on my books. They were relieved to find someone who returned calls, met deadlines, and delivered exactly what was promised. No chaos. No excuses. My small company began to grow, one honest step at a time. And while I was quietly building something meaningful, Bella's world was starting to collapse. Uncle Frank discreetly reached out to a former employee who had been fired without severance, a designer named Mark. When Mark saw the evidence, he didn't hesitate. He filed an official complaint with the Department of Labor. That complaint triggered the first formal investigation into Carter Creative, Bella's company. Suppliers stopped sending materials. Clients posted negative reviews. Rumors spread. And all the while, I said nothing to my parents. Not a word. They kept sending angry messages, calling me disloyal, cold, ungrateful. But I didn't reply. I had already spent too many years explaining myself to people who were never listening. Now I was just watching, calm, focused, as the truth finally caught up to them. While Bella's company was unraveling under the weight of its own lies, mine was rising on a foundation of truth. Clearview app started with 2 clients. Then 5. Then referrals began trickling in. Businesses that were tired of missed deadlines and shady contracts, looking for someone they could trust. I didn't boast. I didn't push. I just delivered. Alex worked beside me every step of the way. He helped refine our communication, handled media outreach, and made sure I never lost sight of why I started this in the first place, to build something that no one could take from me. Soon, we hired our first part-time developer, then another, and a project assistant. The day I signed my first full-service contract with a company that had once been Bella's client, I sat alone in the office for a minute and just breathed. Deep, full breaths. The kind I hadn't taken in years. No guilt. No obligation. Just earned peace. Around that time, something unexpected happened. A woman named Amanda reached out to me. She had once worked for Bella as a junior designer. I hadn't spoken to her before, but she'd heard about my new company through mutual connections. She told me she wanted a fresh start, that she was looking for leadership that valued people, not just profits. We talked for hours. She told me stories about how Bella used to scream at employees for minor mistakes, how invoices were delayed, and how staff paychecks would bounce without warning. Then she said something I never expected to hear. Bella used to talk about you like you were the enemy. She said you thought you were better than everyone. She said you were always judging her. I paused, then smiled faintly. She needed a villain. I stopped playing the part. I hired Amanda the next week. She brought kindness, talent, and a quiet professionalism to the team. She became not just an employee but a sign that what I was building mattered, that people could walk away from chaos and choose something healthier. Meanwhile, Mark's complaint had reached the right ears. The Department of Revenue began reviewing tax filings from Bella's company. Uncle Frank kept sending documents. He was careful, methodical. Every piece of evidence was lined up. It wasn't just hearsay anymore, it was facts. Numbers. Names. Signed agreements. Paper trails that told the real story of a business built on manipulation and fraud. And then came the headlines. I got a text from an old colleague. "Is this your sister?" Attached was a link to a business news blog. Bella Carter, founder of Carter Creative, under investigation for tax fraud and employee complaints. I didn't reply. I just closed the message and looked out the window of my Seattle office. Outside, everything was calm. People walking. Rain falling. Life moving forward. And for once, I wasn't looking back. As the investigation into Bella's company gained momentum, the silence from my parents turned into rage. The texts and emails I started receiving weren't curious or concerned. They were furious. Accusations. Blame. Emotional manipulation dressed up as guilt trips. "You've betrayed your family. Do you want to see Bella in jail? After everything we gave you?" I didn't answer a single message. Not because I didn't have words. Oh, I had plenty, but because for the first time in my life, I no longer needed their approval or their permission or their twisted version of loyalty. I was done playing the obedient daughter. Then, one morning, I got an email from a former industry contact. Simple subject line. Heads up. Inside was a forwarded press release from the Department of Revenue. Bella Carter had officially been served a court summons. Fraud. Tax evasion. Falsifying employee records. There would be hearings. Fines. Possibly even a shutdown of her business operations. I read it 3 times before I moved. Then I exhaled. Not with joy. Not with revenge. But with release. It was like I had been holding my breath for 12 years, and now, finally, I could breathe. That evening, Alex brought home pizza and a bottle of wine. We didn't talk about headlines or investigations. We talked about new ideas, new clients, the next phase of Clearview apps. For the first time in years, we dreamed without fear attached to it. But then another surprise. A letter showed up in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name in slanted cursive. I knew who it was from before I even opened it. Inside were carefully chosen words that tried to sound like remorse but never quite got there. We didn't know what we had until it was gone. Your sister made some poor choices, but this is a temporary setback. We miss you. The family misses you. Let's move forward together. No apology. No accountability. Just emotional bait. Like they were inviting me back into the fire, hoping I had forgotten how it burned the first time. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I folded it, slid it into a drawer, and never opened it again. 2 weeks later, Bella was hit with a second lawsuit, this time from a former client who had paid thousands for a project that was never delivered. Uncle Frank forwarded me the update. Everything was falling apart on its own, and none of it had come from me yelling, or attacking, or even seeking revenge. I had simply stopped covering their lies. That was enough. After months of silence, my cousin Jason reached out. We hadn't spoken in years, not out of bitterness, just distance. He had always stayed on the edges of family drama, keeping his head down, staying neutral. But now he had heard enough. He called me one afternoon while I was reviewing a client contract. "Madison," he said gently, "I just want you to know, I always saw what was happening. You didn't deserve any of it. You were the one holding the whole family together." I closed my laptop and just listened. His words cracked something open in me. Not pain, not anger, just truth. A soft truth I had longed to hear from anyone in my family. "Thank you," I whispered. That call didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the years of betrayal or the scar on my cheek that I sometimes still touched when I was lost in thought. But it gave me something I hadn't expected. Recognition. And still, I didn't go back. I couldn't. Too much had broken. Too much had been revealed. I had crossed a threshold I could never uncross. Then one morning, as rain tapped softly against my Seattle office window, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Hello." There was a pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in months. Shaky. Small. "Madison, it's Bella." I didn't speak. Just stared straight ahead at my desk, heart suddenly pounding. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," she said. But I didn't know who else to call. "Why are you calling me?" I asked flatly. "I messed up," she whispered. "The company, it's gone. The accounts are frozen. There's back taxes, lawsuits. Everything's collapsing. Mom and Dad, they're blaming me for all of it. They won't even talk to me anymore." I listened quietly. She sounded broken, like she had finally found herself in the very pit they once tried to throw me into. "They said I ruined everything," she continued. "I don't know what to do." I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel joy in her pain. I just felt calm. "You did ruin everything," I said gently but firmly. "And I tried to warn you." "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry. For everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just didn't know who else would even answer the phone." I leaned back in my chair, watching drops of rain trail down the glass. You spent years watching them use me, Bella. And when they finally turned on you, you fell apart. You called me selfish. But I was just the only one willing to say no. I get that now, she said, her voice breaking. I do. She didn't ask for money, not this time. She knew better. Instead, she asked for advice. For help. And I told her the truth. I can't be your lifeline. I've spent my whole life being that for all of you. I've built something now that finally belongs to me. You'll have to build your own. There was a long pause. I understand, she said quietly. I'm sorry, Madison. I really mean it. I waited a moment. Then I said, I hope you figure things out. But I can't carry you. Not anymore. When the call ended, I put the phone down and stared out the window for a long time. And for the first time in my entire adult life, I felt free. Truly, fully, completely free. A week after Bella's phone call, another letter arrived. This time, the envelope was thin. No flourish. No long-winded justifications. Inside was a single piece of paper with 4 words, written in my mother's neat cursive. We were so wrong. I stared at those words for a long time. Not because they moved me, but because they didn't. They were late. Too late. Too many years of silence. Too many bruises, seen and unseen. Too many nights wondering what else I had to give before I'd finally be enough. That letter didn't mend anything. It simply confirmed what I already knew. I folded the paper and placed it in the same drawer where her last letter still sat, unread, unanswered. I closed it and walked away. In the living room, Alex was working on his laptop. He looked up as I walked in and gave me that quiet smile, the one that always felt like home. I sat beside him and rested my head on his shoulder. It's over, I said softly. He closed the laptop. You okay? I nodded.
Yeah.
I think I finally am. That night, we went for a walk along the Seattle waterfront. The air was crisp, and the lights shimmered on the water like stars scattered across glass.
We didn't talk about the past.
We didn't need to. It had finally let go of me. In the months that followed, Clearview apps flourished. We hired more staff, took on larger projects, built a name in the industry, not with flash, but with trust. I no longer checked my bank account with dread. I no longer felt guilty for keeping what I earned. And I no longer waited for approval from people who never truly saw me. Then, one quiet morning, I found out I was pregnant. The test sat on the bathroom counter, blinking back a tiny word that changed everything. Positive. I laughed before I even cried. Then I walked into the kitchen, where Alex was pouring coffee. He looked up, saw my expression, and his eyes widened. Are you serious? I nodded, and the smile on his face nearly broke me. We hugged for a long time. No words, just breath and warmth and the silent promise of a new beginning. 9 months later, I held our baby boy in my arms. Tiny fingers, soft breathing, a new heartbeat in a world I had rebuilt from the ashes. I looked at him and whispered, "You'll never have to earn love. You'll never have to buy it." His name is Caleb. And with him in my arms, I knew I didn't just break the cycle. I burned the whole script. And I wrote my own. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own journey, don't forget to hit the like button. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters. And if you're someone who believes in justice, healing, and powerful storytelling, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more real-life inspired stories like this one. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve peace, and your story matters.